Hi, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I am your, regular host, Ozma in the Dark, still utilizing she, they pronouns through some miraculous endeavor. I am joined by a lot of people this week. But first, Christy is, I know this is going to be a pre-recording, but Christy is back, which I am still really happy about. How are you doing, Christy?
Better. I'm not going to say fine yet, but better, much better. I'm still, trans is still a hammer for me, and the entire world's a nail, so I guess. She, her is my pronouns.
Okay, and Perfict,
under the wire.
Aha! You, once again, a clutch play by Perfict. How are you doing, Perfict?
I'm doing fine. He, him pronouns.
And we're saving Christy for last only because save the best for last. Sophia, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Sophia Botha. Yeah, she, her pronouns. You can find me on YouTube, Sophia Botha Rants. So I've only just got out of bed, so
that's fine. I got out of bed a little over an hour ago. Although, to be fair, I also set up a lot of this stuff, so I need to take time. Finally, Christy, the other Christy, the Christy who's not the main co-host. How are you doing? Oh wait, no, we already had a designation. The co-host Christy's Cool Christy. You are Dr. Christy. Dr. Right, Christy, yes. How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's a Saturday. I'm pretty chilled out, and it's nice to be here. Thanks for the invite. And she, her, or they, them. I don't. If someone says they, them, me, that's fine. I think that's cool. So yeah, that's me.
Okay.
All good.
Excellent. And tonight we are talking about. I haven't. Look, the title of the subject matter isn't pinned down, but the subject is old versus new atheism, which is a topic with regards to atheist communities. Now, I have been born and raised Jewish, have been atheist for since high school, so I didn't know much about internet atheist fads, so I'm going to be relying on everyone else more so for that. Everyone can just say your initial thoughts in whatever order, and then we can jump into the topic and, try to be snappy with initial thoughts, and then we can dive right in. Anyone?
Okay, well.
Bueller?
When it comes to atheism and agnosticism and theism and all that, and the definitions and the growth and the evolution and the etymology straight from 500 BC, I'm there with you. I'll talk about this endlessly.
Fair. Sophia, Christy, or
I think it's easier if you call on us. Yeah, maybe call on us.
I mean, if it's easier for you to call on, if it's easier for you, if I can call on you, Sophia, what are your initial thoughts about this?
Well, like yourself, I was born and raised Jewish. I would say I'm still culturally Jewish, but I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So I'm an atheist.
If that's all. Let's go with Dr. Christy first. Sorry to say,
Sure.
now I'm saving wonderful
Christy,
co-host
no.
Cool Christy for
Best for last.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic, had real doubts by the time I was 17, but was sort of a non-practicing monotheist into my 20s when I started really investigating the concept of monotheism and decided it was completely unsatisfactory to me. So in my late 20s, I converted to Mahayana Buddhism. So I abandoned the God, but I kept the supernatural elements. And then at some point, I just kind of had a realization, like, what if this is all in my head? And from there, I became an atheist, a materialist atheist, shall we say. But I still have a lot of respect for Buddhism. And I'm now, I joke that I'm like a recovering Catholic, but I think I've recovered from all the psychological seeds of fear and trauma that, well, more like terror, really, that planted. So that's where that was my journey.
Okay, and finally, Cool Christy.
One with the theology degree, yeah.
Which is even more reason for you to be best for last.
Yes, I'm a hard atheist, so, and I got there very, very suddenly. It was a anti-epiphany.
One of those
I like
saw the
that.
waterfall moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It was a line in a song that just struck me, of all things, but because y'all know me and y'all know that's something that's likely to happen.
So as opposed to the road to Damascus, it was the road from Damascus, right?
Yeah, I did.
What?
My channel, I did make my my atheist origin story. I made my trans origin story and my atheist origin story, which have very little to do with each other.
Yeah, and you can
What was the
obviously.
line? What was the line in the? Can I ask Christy what line was that?
It was from Bad Religion. Does it make you suffer because you have to die? Is it best to live a lie?
Can I tell people how I came? Cool Christy might relate to this actually. How when I came out of the atheist closet, it was when I was 13, and I was put into residential disability education. So in other words, a disabled boarding school. And one afternoon, the teachers went on a training afternoon, and we all marched into the hall to listen to some born again Christian talk about how God was great. And first of all, I didn't like the fact I was having Christianity shoved down my throat when I was a Jew. But secondly, and more importantly, I listened to her waffle on about how great God was, and the obvious question when she asked, "Has anyone got a question?" was, "Okay, if God's so great, why am I disabled?" Which she couldn't answer.
Yeah, I mean, although I'm sure there are plenty of Christians who can bring up an answer to that will be ableist nonsense. But yeah, as for the atheist communities, it's kind of there was a genuine significant split in them, which they've been broken down to old versus new atheism, not just by me. Like I've heard the term new atheist relating to people becoming atheists on YouTube or spreading it. Christy, well, one of you mentioned on the show beforehand about the something with the evangelical church thing.
Not me.
I was Catholic.
I mean, no.
With regards to the split, YouTube atheists and the
Well, there are some atheist churches where they meet and sing and do the whole revival meeting, but it's
well, yeah, but there's something about going against evangelical messaging, and then once it felt like it was one. There was some of them felt the need were more bully than.
Yeah, it was me.
It was you. Okay.
Yeah. First of all, can I just say that Cool Christy has got some great taste in music. Bad Religion, definitely thumbs up. They revive punk rock in America, and obviously I like both kinds of music. Punk rock, that's a very old joke, which only Cool Christy will probably get. But anyways, yes, basically. When sort of YouTube started, you had sort of the people who were inspired by the new atheists like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. People like T.J. Kirk, otherwise known as the Amazing Atheist, going into battle against Christian fundamentalists. And, they sort of did win the argument as they would, right? But then what happened was, and Steve Shives, of course. And thumbs up to Steve Shives because he's a good bloke.
Yeah, but, thumbs up to Steve. Although, naturally, someone on the internet will find some problem which I'm unaware of, and every YouTube personality, including myself, is just going to disappoint me in the end. I'm bitter today. I'm bitter this morning for no good reason. Go on, Sophia.
Anyways, what happened was. They'd won the argument, and there was a split. Now, people like Steve Shives and eventually Dusty Smith, Dusty Smith sort of, I would say now he's a really good bloke, and I've spoken to him on my channel. And
yeah,
very, very soft and very sweet. And
we've spoken with both Steve Shives and Dusty on this channel, and they're both like really nice people. At least,
yeah.
When we've talked with them, I don't know either of them as well as you guys.
But people like T.J. Kirk and I guess Sargon of Akkad, which Christy is very, very familiar with, they were essentially bullies, and they needed a new target, and that's how the whole SJW bullshit started.
Yeah, and Bering. Don't forget Bering. We will shit on Bering forever. But that's only because he showed up. He subscribed to this channel for a little bit, so
I'll give you an example of how low they can sink. I know that me and Christy can't watch the video which TJ Kirk put out, basically beating up on Milo Stewart for basically being trans, and that it's just disgusting. They're just playground bullies. That's all they are. And I would say about the new atheists, I've come to realize that the new atheists is the same old bigotry. Really, I just think of Sam Harris on what's Bill Maher's show?
Oh God! Also, fuck Bill Maher.
No. It was
Real time.
Real time. Yeah, it was basically Sam Harris basically sort of making a sweeping generalization about all Muslims being potential terrorists, and Ben Affleck went at him for it. And then you've got Richard Dawkins and all the transphobic shite he seems to be coming out with. Yeah.
Sam Harris has also historically said transphobic shite as well.
And isn't Jordan Peterson an atheist as well?
I think he's pretty religious.
Yeah, he is self-described. I think a self-described agnostic, but like everything he says is dripping with religion.
Well, I know Blair White's an atheist, and look at her.
If I may.
Oh, thank you.
Jordan B. Peters?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does not claim any direction, but he portrays himself as being religious because there's a lot of religious dollars involved. He will never say he's agnostic or anything else.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think if you listen to what he says and you know anything about theology, you're like, he knows enough about theology. He's not a theist in any conventional sense that I could possibly associate him with. He's not a theist from the things he's said, but he's trying to play word games to trick theists, because at last when it was last known, his Patreon was bringing in over $30,000 a month.
Okay.
And you got to figure that way more than half of that is theist dollars.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't help that he also has made statements that are anti-atheist. So
Yeah.
So I'm not. I have to admit, maybe it's a good thing, but I'm not that familiar with Jordan Peterson. I mean, I know he's an asshole.
I think it's required reading. Read the 12 steps for life.
Oh God.
Go to Cass.
He's a madman.
Go to Cass Harris's channel and just watch her analysis of it.
Well, what I was going to say is Jordan Peterson gained popularity by lying about Bill C-16 in Canada, which was like a nothing bill, but because it had the potential to support trans rights, he decided to go after it, and became ended up a viral sensation in the way in which he went after the bill.
Sorry, Christy,
Yeah, if I can.
Sorry, I was called Christy was saying something. Which channel was that called, Christy?
Cass Harris, Cass Harris. Yeah.
Okay, and after this, that Dr. Christy was trying to say something.
Dr. Christy had her hand up.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. So before we started talking about personalities, I would say that it would be, here's me being all academic, right? Because I do, as part of the Political Studies Association in the UK, they have a religion and politics, and I talked to several of the academics there who work on this issue, including one of them, Stephen Cattell, whose focus is on new atheism. And so let's talk about the real world. Let's not talk about the online world.
Sure.
In the real world, academics do acknowledge that there are sort of like two phases of atheism, really. Old atheism, as you've used the phrase, and new atheism. Now, what characterized old atheism is that it's pretty elitist, not elitist, but maybe, elite discourse. Most of the people in history who have been atheists have been very privileged men who had the opportunity to be educated and to write about it. And it wasn't a big movement, it really wasn't. It was more of a private issue. Oftentimes, it was illegal to be an atheist. And so, you get Greeks who wrote about it, and some people in the Enlightenment who drifted toward deism a bit. But new atheism then kind of started off really with Dawkins, and it's a scientific challenge to some of the areas previously claimed by religion. And you can also count in there Lawrence Krauss and probably Sam Harris and other people who went out and did TED Talks or wrote books. Right. So let's talk about now, let's leave the real world aside and just talk about online atheism, because in my view, having been around for a while and pretty deep into the atheist online community, I would say that new atheism online, the ultimate failing of new atheism, in my opinion, so this is Christy analysis, this isn't something like I read a book on.
Yeah.
But what happened was people who were raised in a religious culture of patriarchy, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, toxic masculinity, unjustified hierarchies, also adopted all of those views as part of like the religious norms. And then they questioned the God and the supernatural part and dismantled that intellectually. But then they didn't move on to say, what other ideas underpinned this God concept that I should examine and deconstruct and reevaluate?
Yeah.
Which are things like misogyny and homophobia and toxic masculinity and unjustified hierarchies. So
Don't forget transphobia.
I kind of put that in misogyny because I kind of put homophobia and sexism and transphobia because it's all about a very toxic masculine norm of what masculinity is. So so I'm not leaving it out. I just misogyny is the umbrella term, and then the other ones are sort of substructures for me. But with that, so what they did was they took all of the unjustified hierarchies and power structures from religion and just moved them into a secular space, never questioning them, never breaking them down, never really looking at what they were espousing in terms of their values versus the humanism they intellectually professed. And that was the main failing. It's why you ended up with edgelords, and it's why you ended up with so many right-wing atheists, or very anti-progressive atheists. It's because they never actually took that step of questioning the assumptions that they came from the monotheism and the supernatural beliefs. And that is why we have such problems. They're predominantly white, cis men, mostly straight men, and therefore their worldview is never really challenged because they are part of the patriarchy. They are part of that worldview, so they never step back and reflect on it. And I think ultimately that was the biggest, let's say, failing of New Atheism, is that it was limited in its scope of critique. And that's what I wanted to say.
I think transphobia itself is a systematic way of looking at things. It's a systemic way of looking at things. I'm going to go with both of those.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that there's a certain very specific norm of what it means to be an acceptable man, and that is cis, that is straight, that is violent, that is emotionally repressed, and always seeking power and dominance. And if anything outside of that ends up becoming homophobia, transphobia, sexism, the other elements. So I just kind of see the core value as being like the cancer, and then everything else just sort of being tainted in a different application of that wrong view from the start. So, but I mean, I think we're just looking at it from two different angles.
That breakdown makes sense to me because of how a lot of every argument you hear against trans people is oftentimes, well, just about every argument I've heard is just incredibly supportive of the patriarchy, or essentially men, or it supports the idea. So men are the ones doing things, women are the ones having stuff happen to them. You can't even if they start going into men are bad and stuff, they oftentimes TERFs will make an argument which also, if you look at the core value of it, it's women can never have equality under the TERF arguments, and it's really upsetting, I guess.
Well, I've always said that the TERF argument is more similar to the Ku Klux Klan argument about race. Basically, TERFs believe in cis supremacy, just as the Ku Klux Klan believe in white supremacy.
And they also believe in a sort of essential biology, which, as a radical feminist, the whole point of radical feminism is to destroy the notions of essentialism, is to say that these are completely socially constructed and false. They're not real in a sense of they dictate our lives. We construct our truths. And yet they still hold to this sort of biological essentialism, which I don't get, how any radical feminist could square that circle.
TERFs say they're gender critical. I mean, the least critical of gender that people I know. Also, here's a curious thing. In Britain at the moment, that there's some Labour MPs who are basically pushing. There's a policing bill going through Parliament at the moment, which is very controversial, and they've stuck an amendment on wanting to ban the paying for sex, right? Not soliciting, which is already illegal, but actually paying for sex. And basically, these people are saying, "Oh, we're feminists. We don't think women. We're trying to protect women." And it's well, what you're actually doing is telling women. I'm not saying that women should sell their bodies for sex, but if they, or any man as well, let's remember there are male prostitutes as well. But if a woman chooses to sell her body for sex, that's her choice, right? I'm certainly opposed to women being forced into sex trade. or sex industry. But what I'm trying to say is that these are feminists trying to tell other women how they should be, and I kind of think, well, that goes against the whole, ethos of feminism.
Yeah, well, that's why the fart thing is the newer thing that still hasn't caught on. Feminist appropriating radical transphobes. But
so somebody tried to assign them fart as their acronym?
Yeah. Well, because they don't fight for any actual feminism, so calling them actual feminists.
Well, I mean, where were the radical feminists protesting? The appointment of Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Although this is getting away from things. Christy,
it's not.
It's getting away from atheism.
Oh, right. Sorry. Well, I was about to say that Amy Coney Barrett is a Christian nutcase.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Christy, you okay? That is the other thing I wanted to check out.
Yes. And
okay, you're doing a similar thing to other Christy, with the muting. I'm overthinking everything.
Again, I have my window open to get some fresh air, and people love Vespas.
Yeah, no. I heard that, so I understand.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense, and I'm just being. I might just also be overly worried because I care, cool Christy, because you were having it rough like the past couple weeks. I'm like, I don't want to make anything worse. I don't want to do a bad thing.
Group hug. Oh, bring it in. Squeeze.
Unfortunately, I still have to deal with this on an instant-by-instant basis when it comes up. So I'm here, but I'm not entirely here.
I was going to say, cool, Christy should have a lot to say because you have you're the one with the theology degree.
But most of it doesn't have to do with that. I'm just the only person I know who read the entire Upanishads.
Well, I actually have and through the course of my own deconversion, I read a lot and ended up, I don't know, I feel like I could have gotten a minor in religious studies at this point. I know so much about first century CE, like Palestine, or I guess it would be a Roman occupied Palestine, but also like the theological movements that were at work at the time and the various sects of Christianity, and all of that really helped me to understand like it wasn't a God-given thing. This was about one group winning out, like in every other secular ideology or power struggle that we saw at that time and for centuries after. So, I mean, insofar as that is relevant, I think, we could have a discussion about how Christians don't know their Bibles and atheists do. But
well, yeah,
it's called Pauline Christianity.
For a reason,
Paul.
yeah.
It was Paul.
Yeah.
Paul was what made all the difference there.
Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah, it's very clear. The original apostles were a Jewish sect. And it was Paul who kind of like went to the non-Jewish populations who had this notion of God-men. And they brought that worldview with them. And over time, Jesus became not a Jewish prophet, but a pagan demigod.
Still reeling stuff back into. That
I'd love to have that conversation,
that conversation. But like when it comes to the new atheists, like
well, do you want to talk about the definitions of atheism and the definition popularly used by the new atheists, which is the social identity of atheist, and which really doesn't have the atheism attached to it except by poetic license.
But I was going to say, Christopher Hitchens was at least a little bit more honest. I mean, he said he was an anti-theist, so he was anti-religion.
Well, there's anti-religion and there's anti-theist. There's anti-theist and there's antitheist. And those are two different words. It all depends on if you get a hyphen in.
Oh, bloody hell.
Well, I'm anti-theist and anti-religion, but I'm not aggressively so. And if someone asks me for their opinion about whether or not they should stay religious, I will tell them no. Or believing in gods, I will tell them no. But it's not the biggest fight for me that's become fascism, but that's different topic.
Yeah.
Well, you see,
But
I'm anti-theist in that I think that the belief in gods is bad for people or of people. And I think that it's both, that it's bad of them and it's bad for them, that it destroys their epistemic heuristic model, the heuristic model by which we judge information. We go, do I already believe this? Do I already believe something similar to it? So on and so forth. And by stages, how far away is it? That heuristic model, which everybody uses for judging information, is damaged by believing something without having proper epistemic justification for it, because then you are allowing yourself to believe new things without proper epistemic justification, which means you can believe anything.
Yeah, you're bringing the errors forward too, right? You're using your misconstructed base of knowledge for your heuristics, right? And therefore you're making the same errors going forward, not just looking, being what you're taught, but you're like reproducing them and passing them on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, when it comes to the new atheists like Richard Dawkins and all that, we focused largely on the negative aspects of new atheism. Do you think there was good that occurred because
I got
of
one more
new
negative,
atheism?
actually, I'd like to bring up.
Okay, you can bring up the negative, and then I'm curious if your idea, if there are ideas with regards to potential positives, because I genuinely want to know, because I the first atheist I knew was the fucking sci-fi writer guy. Oh, also swearing's fine. But anyway, go on, Chris. Dr. Christy.
Asimov?
Yeah.
I was thinking Douglas Adams. So, different kind of sci-fi, though.
Well, yeah.
What I was going to say is the other serious problem, or actually maybe the most fundamental problem with the new atheists, is because they primarily derive from the hard sciences, they don't understand the philosophy of science. And therefore, they have a very, you want to say, just like Enlightenment view still. They're stuck in the 18th century in terms of what science is, when actually science has moved into the 21st century in terms of understanding how we construct knowledge. So they tend to just kind of think of science like a car, and they just get in and they drive, but they never think to look under the hood to see how the engine is put together, what's making it all run. And therefore, they take this sort of arrogance of having an objective truth because they're deriving scientific facts with their worldview of a materialist verification of their theories and predictions and onto what they observe. When really science is any process that adheres to the scientific method, including studying the social world and things that are socially constructed. But because they lack that humility, that social scientists that we have to deal with when we know phenomenon exists, but they're very difficult to measure. And so we have to be a bit humble and tentative in our conclusions. They see that as our weakness. They see that as a deficiency, when it's really their own blindness to the fact that they have a very limited view of science, and they need to be more open to what the scientific method is.
Okay, so you got me. No, you put my brain on the science, and that relates to new atheist transphobes, and noise like the fucking hell out of me, because if you don't understand the scientific method. So, for instance, people like bring up random studies to suggest trans people have some sort of biological advantage in sports, but I mean the most accurate information you can have with regards to trans people in sports is trans people playing sports, and because the results there's been nothing strange about the results, we should not like there shouldn't be this much fight against it. And it's one of those things where, because you want to take out as many variables as possible, and because there are a million different variables in sports and you can't discern what every advantage and disadvantage in a sport, in any particular sporting activity is, it's the only way to get good information is just to have trans people play sports, and it's just like really annoying when people. Sorry, that was me getting salty about that for a second because you brought that up.
If you get acquainted with science and the scientific method, you start to learn that human intuition sucks.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that this leads you to the conclusion that, in my personal opinion, and you probably are not going to like that this is my personal opinion, but it lives within me. Trans women entering basketball, if they have already gone through puberty, are going to have an advantage in height. Basketball is so much about height.
Well, no, because I will disagree with you there, because I know about basketball. There was like a 5'3" point guard.
I know that. Okay, all of that. And Dr.
Like,
J was
really
not a big guy.
Really
he was
tall,
a big guy by everybody else's standard, but
really
in the NBA,
large
he was not.
height. Is really only super helpful in basketball if you're a center. If you're a point guard, height doesn't matter as much, and there are some potential advantages with regards to things. This is what the thing, when you involve a team sport, there's a bunch of different positions, but look, you brought up basketball too, and I care about basketball and the wondrous Steph Curry, because Steph Curry is amazing. And did I need to bring, I've got a Steph Curry shirt. Did I need to wear that for this episode?
Would have been good. Would have been great. But anyway, the thing is, what I'm saying is, I have this idea, but if the Olympic Committee comes back with and says, yeah, it doesn't matter, I'm going to have to accept it doesn't matter. Just like I accept pistol shooting. I cannot imagine any way that gender plays any role in pistol shooting. But they tell me that men do better at it, and they don't know why either. They can't figure it out, but they say it happens. And I accept it happens. So if I accept that happens, that the data just says that, if they tell me the data just says that it doesn't matter how tall you are, the height thing in basketball is negligible and it doesn't matter, I'd have to accept that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you know when trans athletes could compete in the Olympics? When it became
I'm sure it was by 2004 that they were.
It was 2004. Yeah. And now it's only.
Then they've been sweeping the Olympics since then, because women's sports been eclipsed. Okay? Yes.
All 0 trans women in the Olympics, and one trans man who almost made it. Sorry. Cool, Christy. You've been trying to talk. Sorry, we've been talking over you.
I have 2 quick things to say. First of all, I'm 5'7", so so basketball was not in my cards, although I was good at it. And second, I forgot the second one. Oh shit. Well, that was
fun. Sorry. Good things about the new atheist movement, like Richard Dawkins. I know we got really sidetracked there, but science was brought up, and while I don't have a major science degree, I have an associate's in biology, and then basketball was brought up, and
well, I'm saying that you have got enough background to understand how little you understand. That's about where you're at. When it comes to the people who are doing the science medicine and making the proper evaluations on these things, I have to take the expert's word. I don't have any. It would take too long to go get the information to understand the information that they're understanding already.
I was going to say, if you were asking if the one good thing about new atheists, Dawkins did take on creationist science, which is an oxymoron, and you know, I kind of feel that was a good thing, because
Okay, but I think Christy has a really good point, which is worth paying attention to. Is that I don't want to be theists, to be using a term, making them into a monolith. They do tend to see science as being the great man. Great minds come up with great ideas, and then they set about to prove them, which is how science was done for a very long time. But that's not modern science.
Well, I would say on Sophia's point that it was kind of like you sort of did it right. So insofar as, you know, Dawkins and Krauss and Harris promoted the reliability of science and its merits, they did inform a lot of people in terms of what I have to say that science is a reliable method of knowledge production. However, because they don't understand the philosophy, they tend to treat it like almost like it's a Platonic ideal. That there is an ideal form out there that is science, and we do a form of it, and you can't, and it is like this thing. It's not made by humans. It's not a social construct. So they kind of got like, basically they did the natural sciences appreciation for science, which isn't the complete, it's not a full understanding of the scientific method. And they also talk about science in a noun, when really science is a verb. Science is a process that's done by individuals, it's done collectively, it's done over time. And so by treating it as a thing and not a process, again, it becomes something they want to defend, not a process they try to explain. I'm good, aren't I?
Yeah.
Sorry, like
No, actually, yeah, that is pretty impressive.
Dr. Christy works for.
It's just I should do a video on this, but yeah, who's gonna listen to me? I get like 300 views, you know.
I think Paul Christy wanted to say something.
No, and it's only the science as they learned it up through a certain point.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is
Results oriented, not necessarily knowledge production.
Yeah, so sociology and psychology don't absolutely, you know, even when you harden it with neuropsychology and system studies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can I punt us off into definitions?
Sure, why not? Let's go into definitions. Let's be clear about, or are you talking about like? Well, just go where you're going to go.
Well, okay.
I'm curious.
Almost all the words involved here are polysemous. Okay, meaning they have many meanings, especially in relating to the same subject matter. Atheist has got 3 different meanings. Agnostic has at least 2 different meanings. And that theist even has 2 different meanings, depending on whether you're talking about the theological definition or the philosophical definition. Now, most people are just comfortable. We just go with the philosophical definition of theist. It's someone who believes in a God. But if you're talking in theology, a theist is a very specific type of person who believes that there's a God. One moment.
Bringing up the definitions.
Yes, that we have, that it's a very tight definition that it's about whether or not you have a God with a personality who walks with you every day through life. In other words, basically a vanilla Christian.
Okay. Well, yeah.
That's a theist in theology, and then there's other types of theist that you have to that are modified forms to do other things like deism and so on. So it's a specific, it's a different term. Well, atheist has got different terms. There's one term of atheist which comes from the Romanesque use of it, where the Romans used it to mean They were borrowing it from the more ancient Greek, but and we can cover where that was. But that they were using it to mean not worshiping the gods of Rome or recognizing the gods of Rome. And they called Christians atheists because they wouldn't recognize Caesar as a god. So Christians were atheists. Then when Rome switched to being Christian, they then referred to the people who wouldn't let go of their Hellenistic gods as atheists.
Well, yeah, and I get the impression that a lot of Christian arguments against atheism treat atheism under a similar banner, just being against the Christian God, practically.
Well, that's what it was adopted into various religions, and it was back adopted from its later use by the French, covered in a moment. But that it means in the religious use of it, it means that you've moved away from my faith. It's all in relation to me, the speaker. And you are an atheist when you are worshiping differently than I am. And I can talk to you about, my uncle who has now become an atheist because he's a Protestant. Okay.
I was going to say, talking about the Roman Empire adopting Christianity as its official religion, when Constantine did that, you can actually track the fall of the Roman Empire to that decision. The Roman Empire was in decline from that decision. Interesting, I kind of think.
Yeah.
Also, I would suggest that people. I was just thinking. There's a BBC documentary series. I think it's actually available on YouTube. Jonathan Miller's A History of Disbelief. It's worth a watch.
Yes, it very much is.
Yeah.
I thought you might have seen it. The other thing.
Oh.
Sorry. The other thing I was going to say is, I try not to get too lofty with my arguments against religion, right? I try to, and sometimes this gets me into trouble. So, for instance, I sort of say, okay, well, I remember I wound up a Christian royally here when I said, what do Jesus and Che Guevara have in common? And they went, what? I don't know. And I said, well, they're both failed revolutionaries in their lifetime. Yeah, here's the irony. You hear the voice of Jesus, you're saved. You hear the voice of Che Guevara, you're sent to, you're committed to an asylum. And I went on. I said, well, here's another one. I said, if there was a kid who had Christian parents who said to the Christian parents, I'm being instructed on how to live my life by fairies at the bottom of the garden. That Christian couple would have the kid in therapy quick. Yet every Sunday they drag the kid to church, being instructed on how to live their life according to some, old crusty book, which Christians reckon is the word of some, mystical, non-existent sky daddy.
Well,
I just see. You see, the thing is with religious belief, I guess both Cool Christy and Dr. Christy, they're the hard science, right? They're, with me, it's just I don't know. I have a very.
I wouldn't say I'm hard science, but you can finish your point and then I can clarify my stance.
Yeah. Sociology. So.
Well,
that is a hard science. I'm not going to dismiss hard sociology.
Well, I think there's qual and quants, and of course they're both rooted in empiricism, and that's my fundamental core epistemological framework is empiricism. But it's the methods of analysis that kind of determine if it's quantitative or qualitative, and what you can generalize or not about.
Right, that completely went over my head.
I once again, I understood what you meant.
I was just trying to say, I just take a sort of Bill Hicks-esque ironic approach to religion. That's kind of, for instance, they say it's Good Friday, as if being crucified to a cross is good. That's the kind of thing, I'll admit, I'm how do I say this? I'm not the intellectual some people think I am.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have me on the show.
I'm just I'm just an atheist arsehole. There, I just said it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not as much an asshole as Richard Dawkins or a lot of the other things. But Christy,
I was also gonna say to Dr. Christy, she keeps bringing up materialism. I take it you've read David Hume then.
I know I haven't read David Hume. I sat me down and read start to finish, but I'm familiar with summaries of his views of the world. Yes.
Yeah. Well, but Dr. Christy, you're going to say something about breakdown, just to be clear.
So when people try to investigate the world, we basically, this is from my notes from my Research Methods 101 on academia.edu, if anyone wants to go look them up. But what we are investigating tend to answer one of three questions: what is happening descriptively, why it's happening, that's causal or causal analysis, or how can we make things happen better, or how can we make better things happen, normative investigations. And so when we look around the world, there are different ways, based on what our object of inquiry is, the best method to gather data on it. So if we're interested in really getting an understanding of a case study or qualitative investigation into, let's say, an organization, right? We might do an ethnographic study where we go in and we embed and we meet the people and we interview them and we listen to what they have to say. We might even work there for a while to see what the norms of the organization are like. We can look at the language they use in their documents, their publications, their inter-office memos, their office practices, right? Now, we can't generalize to the wider world about that, but we can say a lot about this specific social interaction between human beings. On the other hand, if we want to do something like predict whether or not someone's going to vote in an election, then we're talking about wider populations, and that's where the quants comes in. We look to statistical methods about sampling and how much confidence, how much error we think our results have, and is it enough to say, yeah, we think it kind of measures it, and we're pretty sure this is happening, which is, but it still comes down to going out, talking to people, collecting data, turning it into formats that we can analyze statistically, and then applying very rigorous statistical methods that test hypotheses that are derived from theory. So observational stuff like that ethnographic is great for theory generation. We learn very much about one group, and then we try to see if there are things that they're doing that explain stuff that we see, and then we test it on other people quantitatively. All right, so that was what I mean by empiricism. Empirically, I mean that everything is grounded in observation. It's not like idealism or just a priori assumptions, that we have to be able to look at, count, and somehow quantify what we're observing, what we want to study.
I was going to say, do you work, Christy, Dr. Christy, you don't work for Cambridge Analytics, do you?
No, there's a lot of places that do data analysis, but they do them ethically. I have worked with YouGov and Ipsos Mori in the past, but no, not Cambridge Analytics.
I can't remember if you had something to say, cool, Christy. If not, I was going to jump in with something. I just didn't want to interrupt you if you're already about to say something.
Yeah, better is always the unquantifiable piece of a lot of things. I mean, it can be streamlined, but better is not always something that...
No, yeah, exactly. The normative value of those analyses are what you're valuing. So if it's efficiency, or if it's humanism, or if it's expanded democracy, your values will inform your assessments. But it's just a different way of doing analysis. So you might look at something to see if you can make better outcomes or make things happen in a better way.
Well,
but that's just a way of organizing it.
One of the things I always wanted to get, or not always, but I try to bring up with regards to stuff like this is critical thinking is vitally important, and every once in a while you need to step back and look at things, look at what you're doing, what your end goal is, and whatnot. And this relates to, because I feel like that hasn't really occurred. I feel like new atheism doesn't involve a lot of critical thinking in that. I don't feel like, I feel like there isn't like a goal. A lot of it was just them expressing their disagreement without thinking about how to explain to people how to end up with their own conclusion, because obviously there's no you can't really define anything as like an absolute truth. There is a significantly, based on the information we currently have, there's a significantly less than 1% chance of a deity existing, and so it makes sense to base any actions on that. But if you don't have any sort of if you're not trying to figure out any sort of end result, even if the end result is just collecting data, it just I don't know, I lost my train of thought. I didn't think of a good end result for my train of thought, but
I was going to bring up something for call Christy. I wanted to ask bring up something with call Christy, because call Christy is cool, particularly with this. I know that you put your name to getting rid of the Pledge of Allegiance, didn't you?
No, I put my family was involved in the suit to not send students out into the hallway.
Oh right, sorry, I got that wrong. But I know you've also been involved in atheist activism.
I objected to being to the pledge back then on religious grounds, and to be perfectly honest, I still do. Just a different way of looking at it. I didn't want to pray to an object because it goes against my religion.
And I object to the insertion of God into the Pledge of Allegiance on the grounds of poetry. It's really bad poetry. It ruins the stanchion.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think Call Christy might have wanted to bring something else up. So I didn't know.
Yeah, the one of the I've lost it again. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well, there's no reason for you to be apologizing for forgetting something or losing your train of thought.
This is even though we're recording it and I'll already have been on air. This is my first on air since the interview with Steve Shives 3 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, I was there during that in chat.
Yeah. So the and these are muscles I just sort of let wear sweatpants. The problem. Oh, right. Jangle's Science Lad, or Justin as we know him, had a really strange debate with, well, I won't say, well, yeah, I will say Tom Jump, in which Tom Jump was all about the empiricism of data and how data is always empirical, and that's why he doesn't believe transform. And he went on about, but they should have human rights as human beings, etc. But it was basically poorly disguised bell curve and white theory, not white replacement theory, but white theory. So it's very frustrating sometimes when people talk about hard sciences, because sociology considered a soft science, psychology considered a soft science, even in the neuropsychology field. I mean, I could give you a CAT scan and figure out if you're voting Republican or Democrat or at all. To be perfectly honest.
I was going to bring something up about, we were talking about creation science. That actually feeds into, for me it does at least, something which does affect us, and that is conversion therapy. Because yet again, it's bringing, hocus pocus, belief in mystical sky daddies into basically trying to make it into some sort of pseudoscience. And conversion therapy harms people.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it last Wednesday when I heard Tim Montgomery, who supposedly is actually Ozma heard it as well, a well-respected political pundit who does being conservative in this country, basically defend Pray the Gay away.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just that was that moment. I actually, when I first saw it, I saw it live, and my jaw was on the fucking desk. It was like, huh? You honestly believe that you can pray the fucking gay away?
Yep.
What?
I will say we have reached the halfway mark, and this is the mark in which we can go off topic. But to mention the most important thing, like, comment, and subscribe. This is a good point to mention. If you've watched this far, you actually give a shit, and you and I've been moving around when I say like, comment, and subscribe, and I figured we have a good halfway point anyways. So, please help us. We need you. Yeah, Sophia, you can finish your sentence. Sorry.
No, Christy was trying to say.
Oh, Christy was trying to say. It's cool, Christy.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I was just saying, like, comment, and subscribe. We have no reason to do this other than
You should actually do that. You should do that as a tune. You should do that as a tune to play it at the end of every episode. Seriously, Christy, get your guitar and record something.
Well, ooh.
Are you going to do it live? Oh, cool.
Oh no, because if you do it live, I can just cut out that clip and just put it.
No, I'm not going to do it live.
Yeah, we might get a copy. We might get a strike like Metallica did. That was funny.
Well, that was their own fault.
Sorry, I was going to apologize. Look, I didn't mean to go off topic earlier. I have a habit of doing this. I'm really sorry.
Well, I mean, this is something that to some degree happens a little, and is more likely to happen when you have a group of neurodivergent people. Actually, Christy, would that apply to you as well? I don't know. Like, everyone else is on the autism spectrum, and my brain just went too curious now. Oh, sorry, Dr. Christy. Does that apply to you as well? I don't actually know. And
No.
Okay, I was just curious.
Boringly typical. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we can't go on the neurotypical hate rant that we were secretly about to go on. Anyway, sorry.
I would like to say that.
Well, wait. Sophia needs to finish her sentence. We've already interrupted. Like I said, the neurodivergent aspect may be a factor here. Sophia, finish what you're saying, and then Perfict, you can go on to what you're saying.
I was going to say to Dr. Christy, because all those sort of supposed people on YouTube who followed the new atheists, some of them have actually taken the God pill, such as Carl. And I'll tell you this because I brought this up with Kevin when I spoke to him a while ago. But Carl was on the last time Carl I was on reviewing Kev. He basically said, I don't care if the Christians take over. And I thought, that's when I knew that he'd taken the God pill. The supposed objective thinker, had, I mean, he was never an objective thinker, but you know what I'm saying, how he sort of, well, Carl sort of, pretense of setting himself up as, I mean, he reckons he's a public intellectual, which I fell off my chair.
Should I know who Carl is?
Sargon.
Carl
Benjamin?
Benjamin,
Yeah.
Sargon of Akkad.
Yeah.
Okay, I know Carl Ben. Yeah, don't call him Sargon. He likes being called Sargon.
Well, I call him Sargon of Wankard because he.
Sorry, it's my own little petty thing.
We call people by the names they prefer.
Yeah.
I think Carl is pretty sort of typically agnostic in the British sense, a British agnostic, if you know what I mean. People who raised C of E but end up not believing in God, even though it's supposed to be all around them. But he's quite happy with patriarchy and unjustified hierarchies and racism. Like he basically has all the worst things about religion, but he doesn't actually need a God to morally justify it. He's just a shitbag.
Well,
yeah.
The infamous debate you had with him was that was such a boning.
Yeah, it was weird. I was watching a Destiny thing. I was watching Destiny watch Vosh debate someone else because it's like a trifactor of people. It's very efficient. And someone brought up the debate with Sargon and me. Yeah, it still is like echoes in people's mind as and it was, Vosh was the one who went on and said, oh yeah, Carl went on, no one on the left ever debated and like defeated Carl, but he came on my show once and then said he wasn't going to do any more stuff on Red Troop. And I was like, hello. I was the OG Carl crusher. But anyway.
Yeah, I still like the time when it was after the midterms. Carl went on Christy and Kevin's happy hour. He says the radical left are taking over the Democrats, and Christy says, well, yeah, how many Justice Democrats got elected then, Carl? 8 out of how many? 300. Yeah, that's really taking over the Democrat Party. I actually remember that one because in the middle of it, he rage quit.
Yeah, he rage quit. No, he put us on a timeout, and then he came back, and we just took the piss. But yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying about grinding or grounding things in empiricism. Just always go back to observation. Like, what does the world say? Yeah. And let the data lead.
Well, yeah, that is also a really important thing because generally we use theories to explain the world, and so like it has, if your theory or hypothesis, chances are it's wrong if the world and the universe doesn't agree with you.
Correct. Yes.
And by the world, I mean the empirical elements of the world and the universe, not, I don't want to bring up like ad populum type stuff because obviously like, people, they're
But that's literally the difference between creationism and actual science.
Yeah.
Is that creationism takes theory as prime and science should take observation as the prime source of information.
Yeah. 100%. And I don't remember when I learned that important fact. I know I tend to obsess about like the trying to get to the core element of things because I feel like that's important sometimes for understanding things. Yeah, it's still weird to me how it's also weird to me like atheists, just any sort of atheism that's to the right, it's like humanism is an ethical setup for a reason. Like ethics are a social construct, which is true, and obviously you can have crueler ethics. You can have attitudes that you only want the best for a particular purpose. Like if you want if you want a powerful country and that is the core of your ethics, then genocide is generally acceptable if the country you live in, the idea of the country and the government comes first.
Yeah, not all atheists are humanists.
Yeah.
They're not synonyms, sadly.
The atheism is really the modern This gets back into my definitions thing. I have trouble talking about it without it. But the social identity of atheist, which and there's the philosophical proposition of atheism, which dates back to 500 BC. That's the proposition that there are no gods, that no gods exist, that all gods are fiction, that they're all made up by men. And that's the philosophical proposition. And then there was created another class, which is really out of the religious definition, where there's a group that if you draw a Venn diagram around everybody in the entire world, and the people who they're willing to say worship like them at any given minute, there's certain people that are always going to be in the out group. They're always atheists. They don't worship any god, therefore they don't worship like anybody else. And that's where that distinction of atheism, which you don't get a vote in, people get to decide whether you fit a distinction. And then there's the social identity of atheist. If you meet the distinction, you can embrace the identity. And you get to decide whether you embrace the identity on anything.
It's described our lives in so many ways.
Yeah.
And there's so those are really the three. And the one in use, especially in atheist circles online and such, where they're forming communities, it's about community, it's social identity of atheist. It's not about the philosophical proposition. That's entirely that's a separate thing, and many of them don't embrace the philosophical proposition at all. They don't embrace the idea that there are no gods. And so they step away from that.
Well, I don't know at what point I got to this sort of view on atheism. Probably when I was trying to, probably after I stopped trying to get my atheism to be accepted, and then I was able to accept a lot of the cultural Judaism or whatever I grew up with. But oh shit, did my brain just totally fart out? So, darn, I had something I was trying to say, but I forgot what it was. Go on.
It's funny you bring up the whole, the Judaism thing. I remember a few years ago, I was taking the piss out of Easter, as I often do, and Jane Fay objected to me doing so. She said, you're always bollocking on about anti-Semitism, yet you take the piss out of us Catholics all the time. And I said, well, Jane, the difference is there's a difference between Judaism and being Jewish. Okay. Yes, being Jewish grew out of the religion of Judaism, but being Jewish is an ethnic group. Being a Catholic ain't. Okay. That's a choice. And also, she said, well, what have you got against the Catholic Church? And I went, oh, fuck, where do I begin? Let me think. Genocide, murder, incest,
Spanish Inquisition?
Well, yeah.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Hitler's program for the Jews was based off of a rather strict reading of the writings of Martin Luther.
Well, it wasn't just that. It was also the anti-Semitic thing that was written in Russia.
When Martin Luther was an anti-Semite, they had to ban in Germany the sale of his sermons, because ministers would buy them, read them to their flock, and they would kill Jews.
Well, the oldest form of anti-Semitism is that we're Christ killers. Okay.
And second oldest is the fact that the idea that our matzah is filled with the blood of Christian children.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's only the atheists who do that.
And the third oldest is the Queen of England.
Yeah. Well, I think they're done putting the Greek into the ground now.
Yeah.
That gives you a clue which Saturday we're recording this on. I mean,
that's true. Thanks for giving it away. Like, it was supposed to be a secret. Nobody was supposed to know what Saturday we were pre-recording.
At least you got me away. You got me away from getting into trouble on Twitter for making jokes about Prince Andrew. So you know.
Yeah. Dr. Christy, have you heard? Prince Philip is dead.
Yes, I think the night it happened, Kevin went on about it for the entire show. At various points.
It's been on the BBC
I do recall that.
Did he go on about it more than the BBC fucking went on about it?
Because our show is only 3 hours long.
I swear I was there and I tried to listen, but
yeah, no, because it was on BBC 1 and 2 since 8 days ago, and it's just like, how? What? That's so boring, and everyone hated it. And
yeah, I remember I showed Ozma the fucking TV schedules, and it was like BBC 1 tribute to Prince Philip, followed by another tribute to Prince Philip, BBC 2. Tribute to Prince Philip, followed by another tribute to Prince
the other
Philip.
thing is I talked with you on Monday and I had forgotten it was still going on because it was long ago that I was like, oh, I'm sure I feel like it's been a week already, and apparently they're still going.
I know the new Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still.
And you find yourself idly wishing that some plane would disappear off some radar.
No. I'm flying for the first time since 9/11 a few weeks. So.
Are you? Where are you going?
I'm going west.
Yeah, you don't need to dox cool Christy.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to have to edit this because that takes more time and effort, and I don't want to put more time and effort into this.
I'm visiting my old roommate who invited me, and I said yes, and I didn't actually know where she lived.
Okay.
And so it turns out I'm going to be visiting her and Jesse and another high school friend of mine, and hopefully,
Yeah.
the girl who is my girlfriend. That would be nice too.
Well, I hope you have a good time, my darling. I hope you have a good time and get some rest because you deserve it.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I remembered what I was gonna say forever ago about atheism, because I do care about the scientific aspect. Oh fuck! I lost it again. I just can't.
Well, let me fill in with an observation. I had noticed, some time ago, that the online atheist communities seem to have a very high representation of trans and non-binary people, trans, gay, and non-binary, LGBTQ+.
A lot of trans non-binary people I know are pagans.
And pagan communities too, yes. And that was it was the pagan communities too. And I went, well, that's interesting. And then I just was like, oh yeah, of course. They are in a position where they feel a sincere break with their community, their within the religions where they grew up in. And that can allow them the freedom to kick loose and float free from religion. Or they are going to gravitate perhaps towards another religion, which is willing to embrace them in the community without making them feel that they're hiding somebody or that they're just allowed to be there.
Okay, cool, Christy's. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a complicated cart and horse issue. If you do becoming an atheist, right, then you're up for examining all the systems that you live under, which is why you have your socialist thing contingent and
Yeah.
Yep. I understand what you're saying. I was heading there.
and if you do coming out right, you're also examining, or trying to come out right, then you're also examining the same things. So basically you should be winding up in a different place. I mean, there are people like Blair White who never did.
Blair White is a complicated question that involves a lot of why.
Blair White's a grifter.
Well, I'm saying if you kicked loose from religion and you said, okay, I'm now broken loose and I'm going to be going through myself and doing an inventory and examining things, and a lot of people come up against, and if you talk with people, they did hit a point where they went, there's really nothing in my head keeping me from being interested in X or Y, or the people of the same sex, or in being in the role of another gender, or they go, wait a minute, there's nothing in me that's saying not to do that. That was always imposed on me.
Well, I mean, yeah, although that somehow, okay, so that also can obviously work the other way. If there are people,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like being LGBT, you could be forced to be in a position where it's impossible. You feel like it's impossible to be accepted, and so you have to re-examine things.
Okay, but my first thing was I said that it would be, when I first looked at it, I went, oh, of course they'd be there, because they'd be going, they were able to be re-examining things, and they were looking for a community and so on. And then I went, also there's the other side of that, which is if they're suddenly in the position where they're loose from religion, they can do a free examination of what's real to them and what real motivations without an imposition, and that you get both of them. And so, yeah, it's not a big surprise either, but it's going to have a higher representation.
Yeah. So because I want Dr. Christy to talk more, I'm gonna suddenly ramp back onto the subject. I'm curious your thoughts on this. Are there aspects of new atheism related to abuse? Is the question. It's an odd question.
Yeah, can you elaborate before I try to interpret it, in case I'm doing it wrongly? I don't know if I know what you mean by abuse.
Okay, so
are we talking about online bullying? Or are we talking about
I'm
church
talking
levels
about
of abuse?
For the most part, I'm talking about aspects of emotional abuse. So I'm curious more. I don't think I can get more specific than that in my brain, partially.
Well, I guess I can, if I want. Oh, sorry.
Rouse and Silverman and the like that, or TJ, who was an emotional abuser.
Well, I could point to Carl Benjamin bullying Jess Phillips, the Labour MP.
Well, yeah, but
it's nothing to do with atheist belief. It's non-belief.
Well, no, I meant the new atheist. Sorry.
To do with
I guess the new atheist movement or whatever. I was wondering if that any aspect of that related to emotional abuse. I'm genuinely asking. I've got no clue. I was just curious.
I think that there's a contemptuousness that has is not necessarily part of New Atheism, but has been chosen by the proponents, the main proponents. I mean, people don't really. I mean, P.Z. Myers doesn't really get listened to anymore. He's not enough of an edgelord, you know. Or Daniel Bennett, remember him, the Four Horsemen. It's the people who are very aggressive and are, who want to go out there and take ridiculous stances or platform. You know, I'm thinking of Sam Harris, platform the bell curve guy. So, I think that it's not so much, maybe for some people it can feel very abusive, especially when they're brigaded. However, I think the contemptuousness that the New Atheists bring is sort of a mirror of the same kind of arrogance that theists bring when they'll say, I'll pray for you. So I guess that's as far as I could comfortably go.
One thing as an atheist I have problems with, right? And that is Martin Luther King Jr., right? Now, when I say I've got a problem, Martin Luther King Jr. was a great man, okay?
Yeah.
But he was a great man who believed in God, okay? And I have sort of said to people, look, who am I to argue with anyone who is motivated to do great things by their belief in God? Okay, you see, this is, I'm an atheist and I can be a real arsehole about it sometimes. But at the end of the day, look, if people's religious beliefs inspire them to do good things, then who am I to argue? Who am I to argue? There again, I am pretty anti-religious, and I'm anti-religious even towards Buddhism. And I know some atheists have a soft spot for Buddhism. I will point to Sri Lanka, where the Buddhist majority have persecuted the Tamil minority. I'd also point to Myanmar, where the Buddhist...
but people in an idea, and by people in a philosophy are different. What people do doesn't necessarily even reflect the thing in the philosophy that they're supposed to be embodying. So I just sort of reject that conflation that you can judge Buddhism because of shitty people. I think the philosophy stands or falls on its own merits.
What I'm saying is organized religion is being used as an excuse. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not saying every Buddhist. I would definitely not say that every Buddhist is a. Please don't think that I'm saying that I know Buddhists. They're lovely people,
You've got Buddhist friends, so therefore you can't possibly have a.
My friends. I've got friends who are Buddhists.
No, I've got Christian. As I say, Jane Fay is a friend of mine. She's a practicing Catholic.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sorry. That was a bratty joke. No, I know what you mean, and when it comes to general friendship,
no, because I mean, the Sam Harris, I do suggest people go and take a look at Sam Harris against Ben Affleck, because Sam Harris's sort of like argument was that, well, the tenets of Islam say instruct Muslims to be blah 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 blah, and it's like, as if every Muslim is going to adhere to every tenet of Islam. I don't think so, somehow. But the thing is, it's like, when you say, like, people say, when I say to people, I was brought up a Jew, they expect me to be like an Hasidic Jew. They expect me to see pictures of me with a long beard and ringlets, and a black hat. No. Most Muslims I know, most Jews I know are pretty secular. Okay.
Yeah. Especially that definitely is the case with
they're not fucking
Reform Judaism. The most.
Well, I was just going to say, but there's always this assumption that if people say that they're Jewish or they're Muslim, that everyone expects them to be fucking devout or fundamentalist. No. That's not the case with the fucking majority of people. Let me tell you, my family, right? You can tell I've now had enough caffeine. My family...
Too much caffeine. Too much caffeine. You need to tone down the caffeine a little.
My family were Jewish when they wanted to be. Can I just say that? That's the kind of thing. Which is the case with most people. People are Christians when it comes to, I don't know, christenings, weddings and funerals. Okay.
Well,
That's the case in this country. Okay.
well, so there are two things I want to say. One,
And bury him. That's what they call it there. Yes.
Sorry.
Ditch him, hitch him, and bury him.
Yeah.
two things I want to say. One was, obviously, like, I'm an atheist, and the thing I care about the most is people. I care about the thinking aspect that can cause people oftentimes to evaluate things, even if critical thinking isn't instinctive. Like, for people, I care more about people evaluating things and learning that than trying to actively attack religion, because I think that people are more likely to listen with regards to that, and I feel like religion will slowly die out. The other thing I was going to say is that so, like, because of that, I can't really hold Martin Luther King against things, because religion against him as a criticism, because he read the Bible, because Jesus is super like, Jesus is a communist, and
Well, yeah, I was about to say, you get all these conservatives saying, I'm a Christian, and I go, have you actually read what and the conservative, you get that, you get all these Christian conservatives, offering on about Christianity as an excuse for the conservatism. I said, have you read what all the hippie shit Jesus said? Because, as far as I'm concerned, that adds up to fucking socialism.
Well, also, yes, Jesus gives some good, sound advice, sage for the ages. He also says that you have to hate your mother, your father, your wife, your children, your brethren, your sisters, and your life as well. And only then can you be his disciple.
Well, there's also 4 different Jesuses. I mean, there's Mark's Jesus, there's Matthew's Jesus, there's Luke's Jesus, there's John's Jesus. Oh, and then there's the 5th Jesus, which is the Jesus that everyone took when they just smashed all 4 together and, like, built their own model using little bits of all the other ones. So maybe infinite Jesuses.
Well,
and that's a really fascinating topic. But yeah, just to kind of like say, most Christians don't know that.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how Jesus is always depicted as white, blue-eyed, and blonde?
That's amazing. You find out about that. There was a pope, one of the earlier popes, and that picture was commissioned. That was his son. He had his son done as Jesus, and pushed it throughout the Christendom.
Okay,
and
that's hilarious.
Then later, he said that he was God, because look, his son looked just like Jesus.
Okay, for one thing, amazing long play. Like, that was a wonderful long con.
Well, the point is that Jesus was probably black, or at least not white. He would have been,
well, I was going to bring up the 6th Jesus, which was the propaganda that was spread in the 1930s that to associate capitalism with Christianity.
So you can, that's why there are billions of sects. Barely exaggerating. Calvinism borrowing a lot from stuff that was borrowed from Hinduism, which I find to be theologically the worst religion. But
also, do you know that the reason Christmas Day is on the day it is to do with paganism?
Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought you might know that. But interesting thing, you always get the Tommy Robinsons and the Britain First to go, England is a Christian country, and I go, no, it's not. Paganism was the indigenous religion to these isles. It was actually, a Christian cult which invaded and basically almost wiped out all pagans.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's.
Yeah, well, that was the program everywhere. Hate to tell you.
Yeah.
That's how
Pretty
it
much. Yeah, they were the first real thought police.
I mean, they
yeah.
burned out other religions, really, literally, in many places,
Yeah.
and destroyed the writings, killed people, just
Pagans
getting rid of it.
pagans weren't into orthodoxy. That was a word that was invented by the Roman Catholic, or the Church, the Catholic Church. So, yeah. In terms of its application to religion, that there's one belief and it's a correct belief, and you have to hold the right beliefs to go to heaven.
Yeah, and that's fascism
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, it is.
And we all need to write it down so that we will all be doing the same thing, so that we know we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you do something wrong, you're a threat to me, so I have to destroy you. I mean, that grounding does come from early Jewish traditions in terms of the idea of a community, like people having to adhere to the law.
Well,
and
yeah,
so, its roots can be traced farther back, but the way that they imposed it on other people as opposed to within their religious community was new.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it was Judaism. Oh fuck, I forgot the exact BC. So like it was when the one of the aspects of the Torah mysteriously appeared, and because there's a lot of different Jewish sects, and they wanted fuck. I
Yeah, is that Deuteronomy? No, I
Yeah.
think was it Deuteronomy?
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, there are all these rules. Look what we found.
Yeah,
in the temple.
and it was
all
like
these rules.
some ruler or whatever did that because there was to try to unify Judaism under a strict set of rules, which it didn't have for a while, and obviously there were numerous deities mentioned, which in the Torah, they're if you look at the actual ancient Hebrew, I mean,
Baal and Shira or whatever her name is, or whatever. That might be anime. I don't know.
well, there was there was like I feel like there was a Sumerian god that was referenced as if that god also exists.
Canaanite gods, probably Sumerian gods. Yeah.
And obviously there are two different stories in every aspect of in Genesis there's like 2 or 3 or 4 different stories going on.
The Elohist, the Yahwehist, and then there's the Redactor who put the two stories together. Yeah, because they came from 2 different communities.
Yeah, well, I mean that's why it's always like half of Genesis is like the gods created Adam and Eve, and then another thing is just like God created Adam and Eve. The gods. No, it would still be the gods. I think with both versions of Genesis.
One uses the term Yahweh, and the other author uses Elohim or Elohim. Yeah, so the E version and the J version authors kind of have different conceptions of their God.
I was going to say, that's always the you always hear the Christians go, that they created God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and that basically
from them.
Sorry.
So where did Steve come from then?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe you can ask him the next time. Maybe you can ask him the next time, Christy, you're on his channel.
Whose channel?
What? Huh?
Steve's eyes.
that was because the sons of Adam and Eve went out into the world and married the daughters of man.
Yes.
Yeah, and
They married what? Wait a minute. What's that?
But the assumption of Christians is that if you have if there are many gays and lesbians, that there won't be the human rights won't
Basically, they're saying that gay and lesbian people wipe out humanity. I think it's
because
what you're
of
trying to say.
reproduction. There won't be any reproduction. They've not caught up with modern fucking science.
Yeah, that's the whole point is, creation didn't happen. We know that there are, like asexual reproduction happens. Lots of forms of sexual reproductions happen. So no.
Yeah,
just no.
The most important thing is that I enjoy rabbis trying to connect everything to make it make sense, and because of that, God is non-binary.
There's. I really don't read Hebrew. I anymore. So I don't speak Latin anymore either. So there are 6 different names. There are 6 different pronouns associated with God in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I think the line is God created them male and female. He created them, and so that initial line of just a statement of he created them, because that's when it happened in the Elohim version simultaneously. It's like they were one and then they were divided, kind of thing. So that might be where the non-binary justification would come.
Because they're created in God's image and they're but like obviously there's also other stuff like the 6 genders in the Tanakh and obviously Lilith, the less popular first original Eve, Lilith, and
a lot of the book of Enoch didn't.
Yeah,
it's complicated.
Well, and then there's a bunch of Christian.
The serpent in the garden
was
originally up until Aquinas that the serpent was held to be Lilith.
Yes.
I mean, that's still like a theory because like originally the serpent was just a serpent. It was just to explain the origin of snakes.
Yeah. The serpent was just a serpent. It wasn't Satan, but then it was held that it was Lilith. That the serpent represented Lilith, and then that got changed by Aquinas. He interpreted the serpent as being the representation of evil in the world and Satan.
It's a little more complicated than that. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything when it comes to social constructs is oftentimes more complicated. Like you can get into the basic philosophical aspects that are required for because they're like a certain number of philosophical assumptions that you have to make to try to have any opinion at all.
Can
I don't remember them.
Something about the Garden of Eden story that always is going to it always bugs me, and I like to get it out into the public zeitgeist. The problem with it is that you determine responsibility are people who have volition. You have to be an actor. You have to have the ability to make change. And God is in possession of all the power and is setting things up. Now, you don't have to assume that God is omnipotent or omniscient or any omni. He doesn't have to have perfect foreknowledge of anything. But if he understands probability, at least as well as I do, then he would understand that if you put infinites into an equation of probability, you get back absolutes. And that if you are willing to wait forever, if there is no death, and you put 2 people into a garden, and you say, you can live here forever, unless and until you eat from that tree, then nothing happens until they eat from that tree. And you're willing to wait forever. So the answer is the probability of their eating from that tree approaches 1. they will eventually eat from that tree, and you know it by the rules that you set up. It's an absolute. You will get back that result.
I have an.
So the only
Yeah, go ahead. No,
the only
go right ahead.
responsibility for the original sin in the story belongs to God.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just have a feminist reading of this. So if we want to talk about that first, well, I can come back to mine second. I just wanted to pop up with it
No,
because I didn't want to forget it.
I'm all done. I want to hear the feminist one.
All right. Well, basically, the thesis is Eve was the first scientist.
Yeah.
This is one of my earliest videos, feminist critique, because I've got actually the text here. Now, the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from the tree of the garden? Any tree you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat the fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." "You will certainly not die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Right? So here's, she's presented with her empirical evidence and a theory. Or two theories. Right?
Yeah.
One is you're going to die. The other one is, no, you're going to know good and evil. So what does she do? When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, so she's empirically investigating the fruit, judging the merits of the theories, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Now, in consequence, Adam just stuffs the food in his mouth. He's not reflective at all.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she's the one who did all the talking. It's implied there that she didn't tell him, which comes into the ethics. Well, she's the first scientist. She's not the most ethical scientist.
Yeah. And then both of the eyes were opened, and they realized they were naked. Right. So she got good. So she found out, she did an experiment. She had two competing theories. She investigated the object, that was being theorized about. She did an experiment and she got a result. And that was demonized. She was the bad person in the misogynistic accounts that have come down to us even to today.
Well, I mean, my biggest problem with the Adam and Eve story is Lil Nas X is not in it, so.
Yep, cultural reference.
Yeah, cultural. Look, Montera's a good song, okay?
It's a good song and video.
Yeah, I just think there's such fucking hypocrisy about those Satan shoes, right? Because I remember when we covered it on both the rants, which you can check out on YouTube, of course. Basically, we read about there was Jesus shoes a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
And now there's Satan shoes, and as far as I'm concerned, hey, freedom of religion, isn't that what the United States is supposedly meant to be founded upon? I know in reality it's not. That's not the case, but I just think of Aria. That's what I'm thinking of. Aria is for Dr. Christy. Aria is a trans woman who's a Satanist, who we all know.
She's the one who ran for sheriff and hijacked the Republicans and. Under the slogan, by the way, she ran for sheriff under the slogan "Fuck the police." So,
it's the I'm trying to remember the name of them. There's the First Church of Satan. There's the
which is the Reformed Church. Aria is the Reformed Church. So, but the point is, I joked with her at the time. I said, I don't know if the Republicans hate you more for being trans or for being a Satanist.
Although, to be fair, in the case of the Satan shoes, the United States does have a First Amendment right and freedom of religion, but it also is very much set up to protect property. And that's what at the end of the day, got the Satan shoe shut down was Nike asserted their intellectual and trademark property rights. So
although nothing although the only shoe that they stopped.
There's only one left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that being said, we're starting to get to closing time, and
I haven't had the bell for last round yet.
What?
Okay, I just want to get one last lick in for the Adam and Eve
Sure.
Yeah, that's what.
Garden of Eden
Well, I mean
thing.
that's what
When-
Lil
when-
Nas X did to himself as a snake.
Oh, yeah.
He got one last lick in. Sorry.
I got it. When you are confronted with a theist who will inevitably, if you're discussing these things with theists, and they say, well, who are you to judge? What, about that? The point is you can point to that and say, it says right there that I have inherited the knowledge of good and evil according to the Bible. And that if it's my knowledge on this is equal to God's. That's why we had to leave the Garden of Eden and mess everything up, is because we would become like unto gods if we stayed and ate from the tree of life.
And his ego couldn't handle that.
So we had to go because we had a power of God, like gods.
Yeah.
And that we had to go. And a lot of theology says it's free will. You got free will and the knowledge of good and evil, and you can't have a third. You got to go. And so that means that I got a seat at the table. If we're discussing right and wrong and judging the actions, I'm allowed to judge God's actions.
Yeah.
That's biblical.
Yep. That said, where can people find you, Perfict?
Well, I do this and the Rumpus Room. I do Discord. Those are my two social media outlets. And if you ping me...
Oh, I was going to say, unfortunately, you can never go back to the Garden of Eden, so...
Yes, I can't do the Garden of Eden anymore.
Sophia, where can people find you?
Well, just type in Botha Rants, Botha Rants, into YouTube, and you'll find my regular show, which you, of course, co-host on Mondays.
Yeah, and occasionally show up randomly during the week as well.
Yes, and you can find me on Twitter at Sophia Botha 74.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna work my way up. Dr. Christy, where can people find you? And is there anything you're working? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to ask Sophia. Well, first I'll do this. Sophia, is there anything you're working on that you want to promote?
Not really anything I'm working on. No.
Okay, nothing special.
Just my regular show.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that. Okay, back to you, Dr. Christy. Where can people find you? And is there anything you're working on that you want to promote?
Yeah, so I'll do it in the reverse order. I do a Sunday show. That's the next thing that is coming up. And on that, it's a topical show, so it changes every week. And this week, James Lindsay decided to try to shitpost me, retweet me from behind a block. I found out about it. So I'm going to drag him on my show. So you can come watch that on 1 o'clock Central European time, 12 o'clock UK time. Do the math in the United States. In the rest of the world, I can't do it. Everything for you people. I'm also on the Happy Hour with Kevin Logan on his YouTube and Twitch channels every Friday. And I also run a D&D channel. So if you're super nerdy and like to listen to people play D&D to maybe fall asleep to or whatever else, you can stop by. You can find me by searching Kristi Winters channel. And then you'll find my channel and my content. If you just search Kristi Winters, you'll get all the anti-feminist screeds against me. And if you go to the D&D channel is D&D with Christy channel. Oh, and on Twitter, I'm at KWintIE. K Winters, but instead of Winters, IE. Don't ask. It's a long story.
Okay. I'll go next because I'm working from right to left because of Hebrew. You can find me at ozmainthedark.com. Obviously on this channel, Sundays and Wednesdays. I've managed to get I've been doing a better job with the pre-recordings, so those should be coming up on Tuesdays in general. Pre-recordings. Clips of episodes if you want to like listen to clips and see if that's an episode you want to listen to. There are clips on Tuesday, or if you just only want to listen to clips of the show in general. I'm thinking, you know what, Sophia, I'm going to accept it while recorded, so now I have to tomorrow.
Oh yeah, yes. Me and Ozma suggested.
Well, I mean, this will be a pre-record, so it'll be last Sunday.
Yeah, the Lauren Southern Alexander Hall debate from a couple of days ago. We're going to do a response video. But fuck knows how long it's going to be, because that debate itself was 4 hours long.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, so, like, this is going to have to be sectioned off into more than one part, because there's no way I'm going to be able to get through all of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go through it and see the potted highlights.
The ending is a highlight, for sure. Finally, best for last, cool Christy. Where can people find you? I'm guessing there's not anything you're working on while you're still like getting things back together, but
the only reason I showed up for this was because I wanted Dr. Winters here. I was like, Dr. Winters is on, of course.
Hugs.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the reason, look, some of the guests I get, like, Christy, you will mention guests, and I will try to get them on, because you mentioned them, and I'm especially happy that you were able to come on, because I knew you'd enjoy talking with Dr. Christy.
Also, something for the future when Christy's when cool Christy is fully recharged. I hope to do a video with her about why punk rock is so important to both of us.
Yes, I do intend to do that, and I fell off. Just real quick, because you'll see me before this airs, but I went a little off the deep end, and it got to the point where I couldn't even talk for several weeks. So I had a bit of a problem with trying to do anything, which means I have to reschedule lots of interviews, and I haven't started that. I finally decided to come back here when they said they were doing, like I said, when I was told last night.
Yeah, because I forgot. So I forgot to tell anyone. It's like amazing that anything in this episode worked out. Sorry. Continue.
You can find me on Christy Abbey. Just look up what you see down there in my name box there. And I did an interview with Steve Shives, which all the proceeds from that go to Glisten. And that would be lovely if you guys could watch that. It was a lot more deep than I expected because my breakdown happened about 2 days later.
Yeah, it was.
Hugs, Christy. Honestly, I do really care about you, my darling.
You have written books and you have that tarot deck, Wonderland Tarot, particular version, which has the shortened part of your first name.
Yes, Chris is fine. Yes.
Yeah, and so go check that stuff out as well, because cool Christy is cool Christy for a reason. And that being said, god damn it. Every single goddamn time.
Did you do it okay while I was away?
No, I did terribly.
Don't tell me she forgot to press the record button.
No, I forgot to, I was gonna say no, I forgot to press it. No, I pressed the record button. The thing is, I forgot. I'm terrible at the ending slogan. God damn it.
Oh, just do another take and edit
Life?
it in.
No.
It's fine.
It's funnier this way.
I'll do it since I'm back.
Yeah.
I wrote it, so I might as well.
Yeah.
Your life matters, your voice matters, and you matter.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good
Peace.
one. Be well.
Wait, the Spock thing that you do. Oh, wait, no, that's just. Yeah. Why was I doing the wrong thing? Bye.